Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Upset Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Tasha. We're happy that you joined us. We hope that you're sharing, and we want to invite the rest of the crew on here. They're my fellow Upsetters. What's up, everybody?
Hey.
Greetings. Sunday.
That's right. We're happy to be back in the place. We've been upsetting things for a few weeks now, and part of what we said as a crew is that with this podcast, we want to do a little infotainment as part of our repertoire. And what we mean by infotainment is we're going to deal with some of the issues and things that affect our conference and share knowledge that our constituents may not know and kind of have discussion on those things. And our topic for today kind of fits into that category. One thing about organizations in the church, we have a lot of acronyms. We hear such and such, ADCOM, XCOM, and a lot of people are like, what are those things? And so we decided to delve into one of them today, and that's XCOM, which stands for Executive Committee. Mm-hmm. All right. So, Pat, you're going to help us navigate this discussion today. So we're going to turn it over to you to get us started.
When I think about the United States of America and the representation that United States have, when we look at the House of Representatives, all the way down to our local government, even down to your own community, there are boards that run that run the different laws and bylaws that happen in the area. Same thing happens with the church, and I'm so grateful that we'll have the opportunity of talking about church governance later on. Mm-hmm. But we come down to what we call the executive committee, and the executive committee. A lot of people don't know what the executive committee, what's going on in the executive committee, when they meet, what is it that they're talking about? How does it affect the actual pews? You ever hear people say things like this? As a pastor, you hear people say, hey, pastor, even if they're joking, pastor, we pay your salary. Or, you come, you better be at my house tomorrow for visitation, we pay your salary. The truth is that they have a lot of say from the pews going all the way to the conference office, right to the president. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for them to understand the flow of it, right? I know this is not a webinar, because I know it's not a webinar, but I still want everyone to know how this thing actually comes together, what it's all about. And so what I want to throw out to our the upsetters really quick is simply this: do you know the number? I'm asking that, and then we could go from there. Do you know the number of people that's chosen on that board? Do you know the number and how it's broken up? I'm sure some of you, I know a couple of us know that.
Well, I want to start off by saying, because I want it to be fair, before I started working at Allegheny Conference, I didn't know anything about an executive committee. I didn't know one existed. I didn't know what it did.
There's an executive committee?
Exactly, right. So I just want to make it clear that, a lot of times, unless you're part of something, you don't know these things unless someone is telling you. And that's one of the reasons why I'm happy we're having this discussion, because so many people, even from us doing this podcast, people are commenting about different things and they want to see certain changes, but they don't know how they can be involved in helping those things happen. So this is kind of answering all of that. But back to your question.
Okay, wait. But before we go there, though, go ahead. Finish answering that. Do you know how many people are there? Do you know what's going on up there?
12 apostles.
No. 27 members.
27 members. But
one for each doctrine.
We're moving up to one more. But what I want to say.
I really didn't know it was that many people. I'll be honest with you. I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. So Latasha was saying, as a member before working for Allegheny East, didn't have a clue towards it. But I hate to say this, but as a pastor, I didn't really care unless it was time to move. You know what I mean? So I never really cared what the executive committee is going to say about me until someone said, or you heard it in the ear that it was time to move to another church or whatever. Then you knew it was in the hands of the executive committee also to be able to agree with it or whatever. So I didn't know either. So we know that there's 27 on board. We know that 14 of them are those who are has nothing to do with the organization. When I say nothing to do with the organization, they don't work.
They're not employed.
Right. They're not employed by the organization. And 13 that's sitting on there are those who work for the organization. Right.
Various roles.
Right.
Yeah.
In his different roles. Okay, I can get that too. So I guess where I want to go with this is what kind of decisions does the executive committee make? What kind of decisions do they make?
Very good ones.
Well, though, before we go there,
go ahead.
Pat, I think maybe we should kind of break it down a little bit.
Okay.
There is the president, vice president for administration, vice president for finance, ministerial director, superintendent of schools, and 6 area leaders of the conference shall be members ex officio of the executive committee. And so I think it's important for members to know the categories and levels of management personnel that are part of the executive committee.
If that's the case, then Chuck, let's break it down just a little bit then before we get to what they do then, right? Regional conferences, which is, I believe, is another show that's going to come up, right? That's we're going to upset about. But when you look at regional conferences, one of the reasons why we have regional conferences is because this is going to sound really crazy, but it takes up a region. Whereas state conferences, you just heard it, takes up states. Right. So because most of our regional conferences take up multiple states, it's obviously bigger landmass. In Allegheny East, we have 6 different areas of and I like to go from north. Anybody, GP, take it with me from north to south. Can you do that?
So the northernmost region of the Allegheny East Conference is the New Jersey area, and our area leader in New Jersey is Pastor Norman Miles.
And then next to that is the Delaware Valley, which encompasses Philadelphia and basically southeastern Pennsylvania.
And Bay, how does Bay? Because Bay includes
I helped to create the Bay Area. Pastor William Hall and myself, we got tired of going up to the Delaware Valley meeting and we rebelled, and we decided to create churches that encircled the Delaware Bay. So that's South New Jersey and Delaware, and that's how the Bay Area got created.
Yeah. Okay. So show off. Who is the I know he didn't hear me because he would have come back really quick. Who's running? Because GP just said it was Dr. Norman Miles that's there, and I think that's important for everybody to know. Those who's listening from New Jersey,
Delaware Valley is Pastor Ron Williams.
Ron Williams, right?
And in the Bay Area, it is. I started to say LeVar Burton. It's
oh no.
Wow.
Jimmy
Ferguson.
Jimmy Ferguson.
We used to call him that because he looked exactly like LeVar Burton.
That's right. That's right. ABC.
And so
come on, take us up more. Take us up past the Delaware Valley, past Bay Area. Tasha, where we get next? Come on.
Baltimore Metro.
Yes, it's Baltimore Extended.
Baltimore Extended.
Because then that takes us up to York.
Yeah, all
in Harrisburg.
So there's a lot of cross-state type things with our areas. And so the leader for that is Pastor Maurice Taylor.
Pastor Taylor. So, and at the Berea, and of course, all of these area leaders have churches. Just want everybody to know that they all have churches, so they're still in the pastoral role. Chuck, I know that you're a media man, and you're not, you don't hang with us up that area. What's the next 2?
I have no idea.
DC Metro.
I was enjoying listening to your breakdown. But let me do this to clean up my act here, to further describe, because you guys were actually going there with further breaking down the composition of the executive committee. And in part of that definition, it says departmental director and one other conference employee, as far as possible, representation from the geographic areas of the conference, culture groups, and both genders. Right. And of course, the executive officers of the Columbia Union Conference shall be permanent invitees. So understand, members, that there are also there is also a place for the Columbia Union to be in the executive committee. But I think what's one of the most important parts of this description is representation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's why I want to go back to the last two that's left. The reason why is because those of you who are listening to this right now, I want you to know that you have representation. And that's why I wanted you to be able to get that. And I'm not saying that Chuck don't care, but Chuck is over in the media department. He don't really care what
yeah, we're in a different building.
I'm not saying that Chuck don't care, but Chuck don't care. That's what he said.
It's you know, I know, and I think this would be the feeling for most members. I know my area that I fall in, and I know who my area leader is, and I know who my pastors are in this area. So, you know, there's a lot of parallel between what our members know, actively know, and are encouraged to participate with United States citizens. I mean, if you ask the you know, person on the street, what's the Constitution of the United States, or what's the, you know, you ask them questions about our government. Some, you know, you might run into a college professor or a person who teaches American history to answer the question, but the average American, some, you know, of us just don't know all those details. We may know our local congressperson, but nothing else. And that's why I think one of the best things that from the analogy of the American citizen, one of the best things that we have available to us is C-SPAN. So C-SPAN broadcasts all the sessions.
Keeps going.
And most people, you know, they're not getting an Emmy Award for that, for C-SPAN. But it's an eye into how the country is being governed. And so I say that to say that I believe members from young to old should be cognizant of how their church is structured from a governing point of view.
You're right about that. We got the other areas, and we'll come back to that. The metro area,
DC Metro
area, which is a
that's one of our
largest areas, right? I think they have like 20-something, 23 or something churches that's out there, but that is by Dr. Gary Wimbush. Right, he runs that area, and then as you push down south, these are for those who are in the area you're listening. These are who your representatives are. We got Virginia area, which is Dr. Gary Banks. So going back to what Chuck was saying before, there is representation there, and there's some that we didn't. One thing that's great about Allegheny East is Te Ethne, okay, and we know that, right? So the Te Ethne side of it is that it's not just the Black church, etc. But we do have our African, right, our Haitian, Spanish, and Korean, and there are others that's there. We still have others that's
Romanian.
There. So, a Romanian church, Brazilian churches that we have. I mean, God bless that. Say that again.
I said Indian.
And our Indian churches. God bless that Allegheny East is really. It doesn't look like diverse. Doesn't look like that. The regional, and everybody, you should be happy that we're a part of an organization like that. But now what I want to see is how does that affect you? I mean, as far as the flow is concerned and the information is concerned, how does that, we want to tell you basically the role of the group, of that group, and how it actually affects you. So anybody want to chime in and talk about the role as far as the role is concerned?
Well, I want to ask, say, as you know, John Q member, if I have a concern about the conference as a member in the pew, supporter of the conference through tithe and offering, and ministry, maybe even personal ministries, and you have a question, a grievance, or a problem, what is my first step to get that addressed by the highest body, being the executive committee within our church structure? Where would I go? What's the first thing I would do? Would I go to my pastor? Do I know who my executive committee member representative is? So what would be that? What would be that step?
I'm glad you mentioned that, Charles, because I know we talked about area leaders as being representatives, but it's important to note that there are lay members who are also representing each area.
Right.
Some people do not feel comfortable or do not have access to maybe the area leader, but they feel more comfortable going to their delegate from their area, which is a lay person like themselves, not employed by the conference.
Yeah, why don't we name those lay leaders from the different areas, Pat?
Did you just
current ones?
Well, they're there.
They're all on our website.
It's on the website.
It's on the website who it is.
I was just noticing how easy it was for us to name the ministers,
the pastors, but couldn't name.
But not the lay leaders.
You make an excellent point.
Now, here's the truth. I could name most of them, but I can't name them from their area. You see what I'm saying? So, and
because you're from seeing them.
Yeah, I can see you see them. You know who they are. You know, but I don't know what area. And I think that's what Chuck was basically trying to say is, wanted everybody to know is that, sometimes you may have a problem with not necessarily the pastor, but the way the church is running. It's not necessarily the pastor. You can have that opportunity of knowing who are those two people or whoever that's in your area that can take it up the corporate ladder. Or your pastor can go ahead, Tosh.
No, I was just going to say, sometimes it depends on the issue. Obviously, if it's dealing with the pastor. You may address the pastor, or may seek the elders and address.
No, touch not God's anointed. We don't we don't talk about it.
You know how that goes.
So I have a question. So if we really believe that the representatives in each area can really bring the concerns to the executive committee at large, then why don't the constituents know when executive committee meets? We get a random report that says we met, this is what we voted. These are the actions that were voted, but we don't know the schedule. We don't know how often they meet. Do they meet in a cave in secret somewhere? So if we have an opportunity to know when they meet, then maybe perhaps we can better be equipped to give our concerns.
Is that on our conference calendar?
That is on the conference calendar, and they do.
Oh, it is.
Every 2 months.
Okay, great.
Every 2 months. Usually the last Sunday of that month.
Right.
But that's not common knowledge. I mean,
right. And let this serve as I think a lot of what we're going to say today is, members need to pay attention.
Of course.
And, get yourself informed, know where you are, know where the executive, like the dates when they meet.
Yeah.
Know what rights you have and what the process is, because it's one thing to sit in the pew and just complain.
Right.
Oh, the conference this, the conference that, my pastor this, and whatever. Well, rather than complain, yes, there you go. I'm glad you meant it. Yeah, we all are the conference, and it's best that we understand what those processes are, so that we can have a voice.
Sure. Sure. And they do have a voice. Go ahead, Tally. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to ask, so does the executive committee, do they guide, and how are decisions made? How's the agenda formed? I've never been, I was first employed by this conference in 1978. I have never been to an executive committee meeting. I've never wanted to go. I remember I was almost fired at one, but I never wanted to go.
I can tell you this: I've been there, Nick, one time to give a presentation, and it seems intimidating from a worker standpoint, from an employee standpoint. It feels intimidating, like Shark. Is it Shark Tank, or is that like Shark Tank? So you kind of feel like what am I doing here? And all these people looking.
You've only been to one executive committee meeting as an officer of the conference?
Well, I'm not an officer. I'm a director.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. That's all right. No, but I know what you mean by that. To be honest with you, in Allegheny East Conference, we have, and she's just happened to be here. Our church ministries leader is the one that bring all of our concerns as directors to that board. So all the directors don't sit on there. There's only one person there. So if she's a representation to all the directors.
She really? I didn't know you were a honcho.
Okay. Nick,
I did not know.
Okay, because in some way I tease her to say that she's my boss, but she's our representation that goes up there. Yeah, so she sits on that board. So that's why we're trying to be kind right now, because she's an executive. She's one of those that's on the committee. Okay. But you're right. I think the agenda is set by the administration. That's what I believe. Am I right?
AdCom.
No, administration.
You mean the executive officers,
right? Which I believe would be the president, secretary. We don't call that by that. That's the old names. President, vice president of finance, vice president of administration. Am I right, everybody? I just want to make sure everybody knows that they set the agenda. So whatever you need to be on the agenda, the representation should take that up, for pastor to area leader to, which is one of the reasons why I'm grateful that they don't meet every month. It has to take time to process some of these things before it gets there. So that means then there's another committee that meets in the middle of when they meet, in between.
Committee.
Right. Yeah, right. I think, Latasha, you sit on that too. So what do they do there?
The AdCom. We talked about all these comms. This is AdCom, Administrative Committee. So that is comprised of a smaller group. Still with our administration, still a representative from the directors, still education, right? And then having an area leader, not necessarily person from each area, just
one area leader,
just one area leader, and then there are some individuals. That's the doc. Your area leader, as a matter of fact.
Ron Williams is the one area leader that Delaware Valley is.
Even tell you.
Nick, you messing this whole thing up for us, like we don't know our own.
I had no idea. I thought all the area leaders were on AdCom. I really did.
No. There's a lot, Nick, that we don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of the discussion, because even those of us that have been employees for years, there are a lot of things we don't know.
Right.
Chuck,
if we're not actively involved in it.
I was about to say that, Chuck. So is it the problem that we don't care? Here's why I say that, because the truth is that I don't really care about what the executive committee has to say unless it has to involve me. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what we really need to do is to change all of our thinking, not just the people in the pews, but also employees. Because the employees change their thinking as far as it's concerned, then the people will change their thinking as far as it's concerned, because the truth is that they do have a say. You got to care. Can we switch? Can we switch gears for real quick?
But I just want to say though that what you just said points to, that's just human pathology. That's how we are, even in the United States. I don't care about that unless it's in my backyard.
That's what I was going to say, Chuck. We don't care about cutting. Listen, let me tell you something. My next door neighbor cut down 4 trees from her yard, and the home association, the homeowners association, came in and fined her for cutting down 4 trees. Now
on her property.
Yeah.
That's another show.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Chuck, that's another show. But here's the thing. That means now I'm now reading all the bylaws of the homeowners association, and now I'm finding out, oh, wait a minute, I can't put up a black door. It has to be red or tan. I got to put up a certain type of fence. So this is what happens now when it comes to the executive committee. It's great to know what they do, on what roles they play, because you can actually change things, because our church is not top heavy, it's really bottom heavy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Excellent point. Understands.
Excellent point. The power to the people.
Yeah.
And that mirrors the same thing with the United States.
I'm sorry, Chuck. I'm looking at Nick, and
you're saying the church is potentially bottom heavy.
Potentially.
It should be that way.
Hypothetically bottom heavy.
Nick is here to fight everybody.
Right. Physically, it is. When you look at the numbers, physically, it is.
Yeah.
There are more of us than there are of them. You've heard that statement before.
Wow.
There are more of us than there are of them.
Sure.
So, I mean, probably Martin Luther was thinking about that when he nailed that stuff on the door.
Two more things I want to ask. I don't want to. I'm not even getting into Chuck right now, because if we get into Chuck, we're gonna go somewhere else, and then right after this, we're gonna be on for another 2 hours.
Should I go put on my headdress?
He's playing a carpenter at a church door somewhere.
You better believe it. So when does AdCom meet? I'm gonna tell you why. Because somebody's gonna say, "Okay, I heard Latasha just say that the executive meets." Come on, help me, everybody.
Every 2 months.
Fourth Sunday, every 2 months.
Every 2 months.
Every 2 months.
So when does AdCom meet?
So AdCom meets It's usually the second or third Wednesday of every month. I mean, sometimes it fluctuates depending on conflicting schedules, but it's
So that's, and so the AdCom, I just want everybody to know. So then the AdCom takes what they have and kind of formulates, they can formulate out of the agenda, because there's more going on, correct? To bring towards everybody else. I guess I got to push this. Oh, go ahead, Latasha.
I want to make the distinction though, that everything that happens at executive committee has not been processed by AdCom, just certain things. So, you know, there's some things that are just exclusive to the executive committee that don't come to AdCom. I just wanted to make that distinction, because sometimes it looks like AdCom is the pre-XCOM, but it's not.
Right. Okay, gotcha.
And AdCom, to my understanding, brings recommendations to the executive committee.
And they have to be voted.
Right, and they have to be voted. And I think there are some things that AdCom can do outside of executive committee without a vote.
Isn't that same thing like our like you can veto or you know, the same like our
and
government,
then you can do executive orders, that kind of thing.
Orders.
But you know, I just wanted to insert this while I thought of it. I think it would be providential for all churches to have a chart or infographic posted in their church that illustrates to their members how the church governance process is. Everybody should be aware of that, and I think it would be great if if a graphic or a poster were put on the bulletin boards or accessible to, you know, all the church members, and even through their websites, so that we can say you are informed of how your church runs, and don't shrug your shoulders, because once you know that you have a vehicle to challenge things that you don't like. So do you want to sit down and complain about what we should do, we meaning the entire conference, membership and everyone, or do you want to utilize the tool that can make your voice known?
And
Mr. Chairman, I move that the communications director of the conference compose it and direct the media technology arm of the conference to send it out to all of our churches forthwith.
Consider it done.
Let's take that up to AdCom. See what happens with that. Go ahead, Tosh.
No, I was going to say that, you know, we often talk about that being an avenue for complaints, but it's also an avenue for suggestions, ideas.
Absolutely.
You know, you may think of something, you know, we would still believe God speaks to everyone. You may think of something that you think can propel this conference forward, and you want to be able to present that idea. You need to know how you can get that idea to the people who can make that become a reality. So
but here's the funny part. They do that, but they don't know. The members do that, but they don't know that they're actually doing it. Let me just give you an example of what I mean by that. So we'll be at camp meeting, and you know that we are heightened at camp meeting. Everybody's ears are open, everything. So you could walk by somebody, and this is what I love about camp meeting. Somebody will stop you and say, Pastor, I wish we had A, B, and C. How much better it would be if we had A, B, and C. I'm just using that as an example. And all of a sudden your mind starts turning like, okay, when we have this meeting after camp meeting is over, let's implement that for next year. So there's a lot of things that we do change that comes from the pews, but they don't know, you know, they don't know that it's actually coming from the pews. It's nothing that's written or whichever.
But that's not also policy though too. You know, because those are different tweaks and things that we can do. There's actual policy that can be changed
that's true.
Based on a recommendation coming from.
That's true. Nope, you're right about that.
Also keep in mind, and I hope our members are taking notes, those that are listening, the executive committee is also the vehicle for accountability. Now, whether you think it's in theory or in practicum is another discussion, but the executive committee is there for accountability on all levels. Do we use it? Do we exercise it? Are we aware of it? That's what we need to ask ourselves.
And one thing I do like about that, and this is not, you know, I'm looking at all of the executive committees across the conferences, not just Allegheny East conferences, but as Christians, aren't we held accountable in everything that we do. And so not only on the Christian standpoint, but remember, and I know we hate saying this, we cringe when we say this, but church is business. You know, no matter how you look at it, right? It's, oh, there go Nick again. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead. I'll give you
that one eye went up.
You know, I mean, a business exists to manage the profit margins. A church kind of exists in opposition to that. So we operate with some business principles, but the church is not a business.
Okay, Nick, thank you very much for telling me that it's not a business. No, but I'd like to say that you're right. The principles of it is close to being the same.
Yeah, because it doesn't necessarily mean monetary.
Sure.
Or corporate.
No. Businesses exist based under the aegis of a hierarchical structure where titles and positions determine power. The church, Jesus said to his apostles that the Gentiles lord it over you, but in the church it will not be so.
Sure.
So we actually operate in opposition to business.
Sure. Now, Tasha,
in fact, I understand. I can't wait till the next show.
In fact, in my research, I came across some statements that said, actually, when you look at how Jesus and the disciples operated versus the churches of that time, there was a distinct difference.
Very much so.
Sure. So
maybe that's one of the problems we're facing today, Chuck, that we're trying to run like a business instead of like the God-ordained and anointed church.
I agree with you.
First, let's do this. Whatever way you could do this, Latasha, if you have if Latasha, you have the controls, take Nick out of this conversation altogether if you can. I think we will have a smoother landing operation without Nick hitting those bumpy clouds. No. But you know what, Nick? I'm not going to take that away from you because you're right. And you notice before I began that statement, I cringed first to say that it's a business, or is it what it is? No, God's supposed to run that. But on the flip side of it, there's no flip side, accountability. And that's why I like what Chuck said about accountability, because you have these 27 people sitting in front of, I'm not 27, but you have
27 members total.
27 members total and invitees that's holding not just the three administrators, but also we as directors, we as pastors, all of us as employees, holding us responsible for what God has put us in charge of. So I do, Chuck, have to say that, and I'm going to say Latasha's point too, that on one point of it, there are a lot of complaints. Yeah, we wish we could have, this could be better. It could be better. My pastor, I'd like him to get lost, On the other side of it, and way on the other side of it, Latasha, that you said before that I like is, man, we can actually change policy here. We can actually move the hands of the president, vice presidents. We could actually move that. We could see changes happen in schools because we are members of this thing. So I'm just taking it both ways to say that it's accountable. So
and as a prequel to part 2, we have to also realize the political contamination that can occur with executive committee process. So we won't talk about that now.
No, and I think that's valuable. Can we go back to the beginning? No, not the beginning, but to the comms part of it, the communications part of it, the flow of information. Can we just get this? I know that Nick was playing when he said that. Oh, I make a move that the communication director gives us. The truth is that we have a website. And everything is there.
That's right.
If you have a question, you don't even really have to go to your pastor. You can go straight to the organizational
website
and get all the information that you need, right?
And not only that, but ask the question. There's a contact us.
Right. There's a
contact us. And if you have an issue that you want to bypass the other levels, the communication department will make sure that the person.
What did you say? The who?
Communication department will see to it that the person responsible for handling that question gets the question,
and the accountability of follow through. The one thing I want to tell our our constituents that I know that we're getting better at is to be able to answer the questions, is to be or to be able to say, hey, we got this. It's in motion right now, or something of that nature. There's nothing that people don't like more than to ask a question to an accountable party and not get that answered back. And I think that's important. I think that's
my final word on this is, membership, constituency, employees, know how your church is governed.
Sure.
Be educated on that so that you can intelligently challenge and not start a riot or whatever.
That's Charles, you were going really well. You were going really well until you got right to the right.
I'm trying to, part 2, stay tuned.
GP, as a millennial, come on, land that plane on your side. Come on.
Yeah, so the fact of the matter is many of us operate on the same frequency, WIIFM. What's in it for me, right? Why does it benefit me? What can I get out of it? And unless my church is applying for a CURF loan to renovate our building or to buy a new building, I don't give it about when or what they do until it's time for me to get what I'm looking for. Or I'm going to get moved. When are they meeting so they vote when I move and where I know where I'm going? So we need to be better about being informed and caring about the process, because it doesn't just affect our church, it affects the whole conference. And the mere fact that you can implement change several times year round, that excites me. And I'm looking forward to giving some suggestions or asking some questions on the Allegheny East website, knowing in full confidence that the communications department will get them to who they need to get to.
And I'm sure everybody's probably like, why are we all picking on Latasha? Simple, because
we're not picking on her.
She's not only we're making her accountable.
Her role and function.
That's right.
I don't mind.
That's right. She's not, and I want everybody to know. Some people talk. This is another show altogether. I'm grateful to know that she has the ability, not only as communication director, but also the ability to stand in the gap to be able to speak up or to be able to bring information back and forth. And I think that's one of the reasons why they kind of combine that role, because it's easy for information to come up and information to go back down. So everybody, Latasha is in that seat. So when that thing really comes up when she puts the emails,
I know where he's going.
Complain to her.
No, stop. You're always trying to point to people, but
it's just one way. It's just one way. I mean, we talked about it. I mean, because members can go through their pastors or their area leaders or their area representative. We're just saying that's one way a person can, even anonymously, if you feel like you want to do that, just send a message through the website.
Make up a Gmail and send some of the things that you have to send. But I really want Latasha to take us out, especially because of the seat that she takes on the executive committee. But before we do that, let's all cross our fingers and pray to God and ask Nick to land his side of the plane. God, please, Lord, please.
I never will forget. I heard Pastor Charlie Joe say this one time: the process is the product, and if instead of focusing on the end result, just be faithful and understanding and participating in the process. And so this helps us to realize that we can manage the product just by being involved in the process.
Wow. Nick, that was good. I'm sorry for what I was saying about you before. So I think Latasha, take us out.
No, I was just going to say, last week we talked a lot about voter suppression, and we're encouraging people to get involved and, find out your local leaders and the same thing applies to the church. You have a voice. There's a process for you to be involved in your local church and all the way up. Don't let that opportunity slip by. I mean, you really have the opportunity by getting involved to help change lives and bring people closer to Christ. So, if anything, this is why it should matter to you, because it can have an eternal impact.
Wow. She brought up Jesus. I mean, we had all this conversation, but she brought up Jesus.
That's a good landing.
So Latasha,
if anybody has a problem, we have an advocate with the committee. Her name is Tasha.
Latasha, though, honestly, Chuck is right at where he's supposed to be. Tell us how people can send in their questions or even
complaints.
their complaints and their policy changing. Go ahead.
Yes, we have an email set up for the upset. Like maybe you just want this group to take some stuff back. We talked about being anonymous. We'll make your suggestions and requests anonymous. upset@aecsda.com. Reach out to us. Share some of your concerns, maybe some questions. You heard us talk about a lot today. Maybe you have some questions exactly about how things work. And also, I do wanted to share, since we're talking about the website, that on the website, under the president's page, is a breakdown of the executive committee, all of its members, their role and responsibility. So there's a place for you to go and read up for yourself and find out exactly how they operate and how you can get involved.
Excellent.
Awesome. I wanted to. Well, thanks, guys. It's a little difficult to tackle things that you're kind of interwoven and do, and I think you all did a great job.
We ain't talk about you, Latasha. We didn't talk about you at all on the committee. We didn't talk about you.
But we do want the viewers to know next week you're going to have to tune in because we're taking this thing up a little higher to the other levels of the church. We just dealt with AEC, Executive Committee, but we're going to be talking about church governance and all of that hierarchy and, how it plays into everything that we do as an organization. So if you thought this was interesting, wait till next week. We want to know what you think about that as well. All right, Upsetters, thank you once again for all you contributed to the dialogue. And everybody, we'll see you next week, Sunday, 6 p.m. Make sure you're following us on all our podcast platforms. All right, we're out.